Can you override it?
Boom. There. We'll just go live so we can say, "Hey, Guy.
How's it going, Guy?
Wish I was there. Wish you were where? Wish you were here? Wish you were in the frigid Midwest? Not that it's any better out where you are.
I'm sure it's just as cold there.
Oh my gosh. Wow, this is amazing. Brian's with us too. We actually have people watching. See, all Apple had to do was schedule something for the evening and
yeah,
there you go.
We should go in the chat.
I'm still doing the stream. Has Apple started the stream yet? No, they haven't.
No.
Live in 3 minutes and 9 seconds.
Brian, I'm surprised you're not watching the World Series. Got your Arizona Diamondbacks playing.
Wait, is it actually the World Series? Is the World Series going on now?
Yeah, it's game 3.
Is it really?
Rangers and
all I know is the
Diamondbacks.
playoffs are going on in MLS. That's what I know. I don't know anything. I don't know baseball anymore.
2 TVs for Brian. Okay. He's got 1 TV for the event and 1 TV to watch the World Series.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Well, what do you think? Well, Eric hasn't joined us yet. What do you think, Dave? Should we get started and just bring him in?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
Got 3 minutes before they.
Yeah, I suppose we can wait for Eric. We'll put him right there in the middle.
I should look. I don't see
Go sports ball. Yeah, exactly.
Now I see the middle.
Nice.
Oh.
1 minute and 9 seconds. I seem to be 1 second off. Oh, wait, here they go. They're starting. All right.
Are they? I'm still stalled here.
Now I can finally turn my phone on its side and have it not fall asleep. What am I using to stream tonight? I am using Ecamm Live. Yeah. All right. We'll just, yeah, we'll bring Eric in as soon as he joins us, and we'll get started. Since Apple's gotten started, we'll get started. I'll actually begin this before they begin, Dave. That must have you excited.
Yeah. It's still. I'm looking at both YouTube and Apple TV here.
YouTube's probably what, a minute behind? Minute behind?
I'm looking at. No, it looks right. Yeah, maybe it is.
They're usually a little behind. All right.
I always bring YouTube up on the Apple TV too.
I will get. Oh wait, I gotta move my cameras over here. Okay, now I can get started. Now I can. I'm moving you down here, so I might. There's Eric.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yep, you were really
There's
quiet there
Now
for
you
a
can?
second.
There's Eric.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Here we go. Hey, Eric.
All
Here
right.
we go. Hey, Dave, how
Now.
you doing?
Good,
Now
bud.
that Eric is with us, we can get started.
Yeah, right.
And
Because
it's
you were.
started, They're doing
We
their-
were
You
we were
just-
just gonna cut and run without you, Eric.
I'm sure. You probably would have been better off, actually.
Well, I have a very important question for you, Eric, and I'm going to make that part of my intro, okay?
Okay.
All right. So here we go.
Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 418 for October 30th, 2023. Reaction time, Apple's Scary Fast event. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And we are back for another reaction time episode. A bit of a surprise, really. Not only that we're actually having what we think will be a Mac event, but Apple's hosting it, I believe, maybe for the first time ever, in prime time. Now, if this were an Apple TV event or maybe a rundown of what's heading our way on Apple TV Plus, that would make sense. But with speculation about the haunting hour of 5 p.m. Pacific aside, I am expecting big things from Apple today. At least 24 inches diagonal big. And I will be incredibly disappointed if this turns out to be a MacBook only night. Now, what I am expecting is a quick event. Now, I know Scary Fast is a callback to when the M series processors were announced, but I also think it's an indicator of Apple's intentions to keep these announcements short and to the point. But before we get started on today's discussion, let's turn to this episode's spooky reaction time panel. First up is the co-host of For Mac Guys Only. It's Eric Erickson. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Well, pretty good. How are you?
I'm
I'm excited and nervous and scared to see how fast this goes.
scared being the operative word, I think.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And joining Eric and I tonight, the host of In Touch with iOS, Dave Ginsburg. Howdy, Dave.
Hey, how are you? Glad to be here. This is going to be an exciting event, and I already see Tim Cook coming up on stage already.
Oh, no, we better get going then. And remember, if you are joining us live, and we do have a couple folks in the chat room tonight, namely Guy and Brian. Hey, Guy and Brian. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat room too, so if you have any questions or comments as we move along, well, I don't have to tell you. Just go ahead and preface it with a Q, and we'll try to address it. But since it's really just Guy and Brian, we'll just keep an eye on you guys, all right? Eric, I do want to start with you, and I'm hoping we can continue this in just a bit when an announcement is actually made. So you can see I'm counting an announcement being made in this regard. But I wanted to ask you, this is something we could have discussed in the show proper, but what do you think? How important is the iMac to Apple's lineup? Not only technologically, but if I can put it this way, emotionally.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And for all the times we talked about the mythological mini tower that, something that didn't have a monitor on it, because I think, at that time, only the Mac Pro and the Mac Mini were the only two. The iMac, I think, is a huge deal. And not just because it kind of put Apple back on the map and it was best-selling, Mac right from the get-go. And for all the styles and colors that it's had through the years, but also just because it harkens back to the old days when the Mac was an all-in-one. And I think they kind of need it for no other reason than that. And also, and it's good that they're back to making displays again. I think that's a really good thing. But also, it helps Apple kind of show what they can do in the display field. I mean, if you remember too, the first 5K display really was an iMac. And in fact, actually, they did that even at the time. I think, I don't know if you remember, it was Dell that came out with a 5K display soon thereafter or whatever. But it was as expensive as the iMac was. And part of the thing they were able to do, because they were able to use the iMac guts for the display. So, I think the iMac is, I love it personally. I don't have one right at the moment, but I've had them through the years, and, I think it would be a shame to see it go away.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the Dell display and the iMac, because as far as I know, and I believe this may even still be the case, they were both LG panels. From what I understand, the Dell display was, in essence, the same display that was in the iMac.
Right.
I could be wrong on that. Or very, very similar anyway.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. I think they both used LG panels. And I think probably a lot of companies do outside of maybe Samsung. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. How about you, Dave? I know you've been prognosticating on other shows this past week, namely Mac Voices Live. I think you guys, in fact, I know Guy was on there. Was Brian on there too?
Brian's on there every weekend.
Brian was on there too, and you guys were talking about what you were expecting today. Is anything top of the list for you that you hope to hear from Apple today?
Well, I was hoping that they'll update the Magic accessories to USB-C. That was one of my predictions. I did this on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network too. We did Keynote Bingo. I do have to add though, breaking news here. They did announce the M3 Pro, and the M3 Max.
Breaking news! M3, the thing that's been rumored all week.
Yeah.
You should have a ticker going at the bottom.
I should. Yeah. Well, that got me in trouble last time, so we're not going to do that again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That got me in trouble two times over. We haven't even had a chance to talk about that on the show yet. I got in trouble with two different major tech entities with that, so never doing that again.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to hear about that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one.
Yeah.
So yes, I heard that rumor too, Dave, about USB-C on the accessories, and other than pure convenience, I mean, do I really want to charge my mouse with a more expensive cable than I was using before?
I don't know if it's necessarily a more expensive cable, but it's going to be more convenient because as they've now moved everything pretty much away from the Lightning connector. Now the iPhone is switched. It makes only sense that they do it with the accessories now, and I think they have to comply to the EU anyway. So it's something that they'll probably going to have to do eventually. If they don't do it this year, for sure next year.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. It's a compliance issue more than anything else, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dave gave the breaking news just a moment ago. M3 was introduced, and I see in the chat room here, in fact, our friend Guy Searle from iMac has said, crazy that they're doing the M3. Who could have seen that coming? So I know Dave is paying a lot of attention to this. What M3s have they announced so far?
All three. There was the M3, the M3 Pro, and the M3 Max.
Yeah, which is kind of a first for them too, isn't it? Usually they always kind of announce the M chip, and then the Pro and the Max come out later, and then the Ultra after that.
Yeah. Well, one rumor is the M3 Pro coming to the iMac, and I think that is something that really needs to happen.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And
This is probably the most anticipated new Mac from clients of mine. I have multiple clients who've reached out to me at least every month for darn near the past year. When is that new iMac coming? Because that is what they want. They want the all-in-one Mac. I have told them numerous times, well, we got the M2 Mac Mini, you've got the Mac Studio. Nope, I want the iMac. I want the all-in-one. I want the one that comes with the keyboard. I want the one that comes with the mouse, and I want the one that comes with that display.
Yeah.
And finally, I hope we're going to be seeing that today. Because
I would go to the assumption based on the fact that the M3 was announced and it was well overdue. It's the thing with the iMac it's more a consumer based model. It's not a pro model. You got the Pro series with the Mac Studio and the Mac Pro, and even the Mac Mini has a Pro version too. So you got pros that can actually take advantage of those.
Right.
And I don't think they're as popular with the iMacs were to that audience, but in the consumer line or just maybe in small business or just people who like all-in-ones, I mean, yeah, it was well overdue. Like I said, I think it was over 900 days since the last iMac.
It was pretty darn near close to that.
Time.
Yeah, it was.
Like almost close to 3 years now.
Was it March 2021? March or May?
Yeah,
I can't remember. March.
I think May, but yeah, either way, 2021.
Yeah.
Actually, prior to the Mac Studio and the Apple Silicon and everything, they were really kind of making a prosumer iMac. The 27-inch, if you got it, with the memory and upgraded to the 64 gig, and there was a decent graphics card. I mean, it was kind of, they had the iMac Pro for a little while there, but I mean, outside of the Mac Pro, which got really expensive, if you wanted really their best Mac at the time, outside of that, you had to get an iMac, an iMac 27-inch. And now that they've got the Mac Studio and they've beefed up the Mac Mini, and I think Apple Silicon is able to do so much more with so much less as far as power. They're able to stick it in smaller spaces, so maybe the iMac maybe they won't have the 27-inch, but they could. I did read some things where they were talking about maybe bringing back the iMac Pro, and they certainly could. I don't know if it was a big seller for them the first time around, but it with Apple Silicon, it's a whole different thing. The guts of the iMac before were kind of caught between a laptop and a desktop almost. I mean, they did have a Core i7, and I think even a Core i9 in there. Right. And like I said, 64 gig of memory, but it wasn't. It's not like what they can do now with Apple Silicon. I mean, it's so much more, dynamic, I guess. I was gonna say powerful, but obviously that's the case. But I think it's something they can do a lot more with in a lot smaller space.
Yeah, I never thought I would be heartily recommending 8 gig memory Macs until Apple Silicon, right? But that said, the few 8 gig Macs, Apple Silicon Macs I've had the pleasure of working with, specifically iMacs, just didn't feel as snappy as they should. I would like to see them start with 16, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And just forget about the 8. 8's fine on the MacBook Air, but I kind of feel like the iMac should start at 16.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Like you said, it's fine on a smaller laptop, but yeah, I think, 8 gig anymore too. It is, even with Apple Silicon and with what they've done with Mac OS and memory compression and all of that stuff, and the SSD. I mean, things move in and out of, I think, memory so much faster than what they used to, that things aren't just sitting. But yeah, you're right. 16 gig, I think, is really the least amount, unless you just don't really do anything. You really keep it.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point. I was just thinking that the one that really felt the most sluggish was an iMac with a humongous photo library. And it was in particular when working with photos that I felt that sluggishness. So
Okay.
yeah, I think you probably just hit it. A typical day-to-day. Look, we got an 8 gig MacBook Air, and it's perfectly fine. No problems at all. Trust me, I would hear it if there were problems with it. No problems at all with it. And heck, I hesitated for a long time whether an 8 gig Mac Mini would have been fine for that Ecamm Live machine that I built. And ultimately, I ended up going with the 16 and a terabyte of storage. But eight's fine. But I sure would like to see 16 as a starting point, because I think more people who are buying them are buying them to maintain those libraries and possibly do a little video editing and things like that. But mostly it comes down to photos, doesn't it?
Sure
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. You're right. Photos are a big thing.
I have the MacBook Air M2. I bought at the beginning of this year, and it's a really solid machine.
Mm-hmm.
I've only got 8 gigs of RAM in it and a 256 solid state, and I'm using it just as a secondary machine. Works perfectly fine for my needs, and I think for most people's needs. That's why the price point of that it was always very affordable. Going from $899 to $999 is the base model. It's perfectly fine. Even when I bought this M1 Pro 16-inch MacBook Pro, I mean, it's still working great. But it's good to see they're doing this. I don't know if you don't know, they did announce that the MacBook Pro is being updated across the 14 and the 16-inch models. They're going to offer the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max, all three chips are going to be offered in the MacBook Pro, which is pretty awesome. So you're going to they're really spreading out the audience, because some people don't want to spend the big money on the Pro or the Pro chip or the Max chip. So and they just announced 128 gigs of RAM. It's going to be the Max now.
So what? And they also brought up ray tracing too, which they said was the first on the Mac, and obviously because it uses a 3 nanometer. I think it's the same A17, so it's the same as the iPhone. So they were able to bring that part to the Mac as well. But so when did the MacBook Pro with the M2 Max, M2 Pro, M2? When did that come out? When did that?
It was, I think it was not even about 18 months ago. I think probably around
January, right?
And January is when the Air, December 2022, maybe, or January of this year. Well, I bought mine Air in 2023, so we're probably talking. I would say late 2022 is when the M2 came out.
Yeah,
I was gonna say this is really quick. I mean, I think usually it's usually a year and a half or something, or 18. I mean, this is they're really moving. I mean, I guess it's a good thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, and Apple was always hamstrung by Intel's release schedule.
Yeah.
That was what always held them back. And before that, IBM's. So
yeah, right. PowerPC and
and Motorola.
Yeah, now they don't.
I mean, they
Motorola and IBM.
They have that ability to keep moving forward. And to Guy's point in the chat room, he said still on an M1 MacBook Pro and see no reason to replace it. Absolutely. My Mac Studio is an M1. I see no reason to replace it. In a sense, our saying, hey, where is this M2 iMac? Where's the M3 iMac? We want the M3 iMac. It's been 3 years. Let's bring that thing out finally. To both of your points, do we really need it? Do we really need it? I mean, the folks who are going to be using an iMac, do they need the M3?
The thing is, they're really pushing in this is this is a great upgrade from an Intel, because everybody are still a fair amount of people are still sitting on Intel Macs, and they're really. I've seen it throughout this presentation so far. Is they're really putting that towards they're thinking upgraders are going to be Intel customers that are need to move off of those onto this.
They just said 11 times faster than the fastest Intel MacBook Pro or whatever So yeah, you're right. They are really pushing. They're really pushing it towards. And I also was thinking too. You're right. Do we really need that? Do we need this? No. And but Apple does. I think Apple probably, without being probably obnoxious, wants to keep pushing the envelope and not just get ahead, but stay ahead of the other chips. Because Intel, AMD, NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA, I think, is coming out with an ARM chip too, or working on one. Probably even Microsoft. They're not going to sit around and wait to see what Apple does. So I think Apple wants to stay ahead. MacBook Pro in space black.
Space
Jeez.
black, I know.
Ugh.
One other thing I wanted to add, because
That's
we
the
got past this.
showstopper right there. Space black
Right there.
MacBook
Well,
Pro.
the other showstopper that did come up, I've been trying to get in here, is the 22 hours of battery life.
Okay, that's
they
insane.
advertise this. 22 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this thing's awesome. I love that color.
Oh. Jeez. Yeah. You can count on it
is
to
sweet.
work for years to come, and I want to get rid of mine and get that one right now.
Yeah.
Even though mine could work for years to come.
Yeah. The guy just said scary black.
It's scary black, yeah.
Spooky black.
It's
Spooky
spooky
black.
black.
Yeah.
That's nice. That is really, yeah. It looks like pretty much the same form factor and everything, just has the
Yeah.
new chip, and it looks like the chip, definitely. I guess I was kind of doing some reading beforehand, and it kind of made it like they didn't expect that the M3 would be a huge leap, kind of like what the M2 was to the M1.
Right.
But some of their stats that they had up there, I mean, it looked kind of significant. I mean, they're talking about the graphics, the GPU doing a lot more
Right.
and handling a lot more things, which you wonder, could they do that with the M2 as well? But I guess possibly not. So that looked really interesting too, I thought.
Yeah, no, they're really talking up the graphics and the graphics
Yeah.
engines. And I mean, I think the M3 Max had 40 cores in the GPU. I mean,
Wow.
the Max,
The M3 Max, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so the M3 Max has 40 cores? Wow.
of GPU, yeah.
Of GPU. Jeez.
I have the volume down, so I can't hear all the details here. I saw they were just showing a little
I got
outtake.
closed captioning on, so that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
I
Yeah,
probably
me
should
too.
do that. That would be smart. That would be smart,
Yeah,
Dave. That would be the,
Yeah.
it's late. It's late. I turned my brain off a couple hours ago. Anyway, the games are cool. It's interesting, however, that they were showing the snippet from the new Godzilla show coming to Apple TV Plus, which I'm kind of excited about, by the way. I think that's going to be fun. But the thought that came to me, I'm sure they're probably showing it being broadcast in 16K or something crazy like that, and the MacBook just yawning at the idea of
Right.
processing all that video. But my thought was, yeah, I could watch video like that on my G4 Cube.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But that was probably more limited to 1080, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah, probably. And what you didn't say, they probably wasn't just like 16K. It was probably like 10 tracks of 16K, something like that. Yeah,
Exactly.
I know. No, you're right. I wish they would bring back not the G4 Cube, but the Cube. I love the Cube.
Well, they did in essence, right? The Mac Studio.
Right. The Mac
that's-
Studio, yeah.
That's a cube. Now,
That
translucent
is a
Mac
cube.
Studio would be awesome.
That is what I was thinking.
And
Yeah,
even better,
exactly.
translucent titanium.
Ooh.
There you go. That's
Do they have that? Can they? I know they have transparent aluminum.
I'm sure
Remember,
somewhere in the MCU, translucent titanium exists, and all they have
Exists.
to do is figure out how to get it out of the film and into real life.
Into real life. Well, you remember Star Trek 4, I think, where they went back in time, and Scotty was working at the Mac. Remember, he's like, computer.
Computer?
And- yeah.
Computer?
And he's like, just use the keyboard. And he's like, oh, how quaint. And he gave him the formula for transparent aluminum. And,
That's
Bone
right.
says, you're giving that, you're giving them that. How do we? And he's like, how do we know this guy didn't invent it? But actually, I just read something now where they have actually made transparent aluminum now. So,
Oh, come on.
yeah, seriously, it's actually a real thing. Now, I don't think it's for everybody, but it's something they were able to make. So
That darn Star Trek. I tell you,
I know.
They get more correct
they do.
20,
They do.
30, 40 years ahead of time than anybody else.
And Apple's taken more stuff from them, I think, than just about anybody else too. When you look at the iPad and the pad, and they need to come up with a transparent aluminum Mac Studio.
That would be amazing. Now,
That would be amazing.
going back to the
pricing
black
if you-
MacBook, this is the MacBook Pro coming in this color?
Yes.
Yeah. Remember how popular the black MacBook was? That was an
Yeah.
incredibly popular machine. Space black.
And we got the
Yeah.
pricing. It was starting at $15.99 on the MacBook Pro 14-inch, and the same price on the 16-inch, $24.99 that was on the previous model.
Wow. And the MacBook, the black one, black and white, but those were plastic, right? Those are polyurethane. They weren't aluminum like this one
Yeah,
is.
they were the not polyurethane. They were the
Yeah.
shoot. What was the material? Guy will tell us. What was the material the MacBooks were made out of, Guy? He remembers that kind of stuff. I don't remember what I
By
had
the
for
way, they-
dinner, let alone what the MacBooks were made out of.
And they
Yeah,
did
I'm
announce the
starting to
iMac-
run
the
into that
iMac.
too.
I
Yeah.
see that, Dave. They did. They
Yeah.
announced the iMac, and
It's like it's going to be the same, but other than an M3 processor.
it kind of looks like they just swapped out
upped
the
it.
processor. And that's it.
But they're also talking about, I don't know if it's going to be 500 nits, the display. Is that what the current
Right.
one is? It does.
Might be a little higher.
It might be a little bit. But it also, I wonder if they kind of took the studio display and kind of put that in the iMac, or maybe that's what's always been there anyway. But they were, again, pushing and saying how much faster this is over the 27-inch Intel iMac. So if you're hanging on to a 27-inch Intel iMac, which, from like 2019, this is, a bazillion times faster than that. So
What about my 27-inch from 2012 that I'm using at the office?
no, nothing's going to be faster than that.
Nothing's going to be faster than that? Okay, good.
No.
Phew, I'm safe then.
Yes, you
I
are.
don't have to upgrade.
Yeah. Up to 24 gig of unified memory, 2 terabytes. Okay.
I did see them refer to it as a 4.5K display, Eric.
Yeah,
And-
24-inch, 4.5K
4.5K
Retina.
now.
Yeah. Placing it kind of
24
right in
gigs,
between the 5K and the 4K of the previous gen.
Yeah.
S- s-
So they upped it.
Still starts at $12.99.
That's great. And that's what my clients were asking me. Is it going to be more expensive? Is it going to be? No, it's going to be the exact same price. I guarantee it. Same price.
Big bump in
Just
speed.
better performance. Yeah.
And that was a scary fast release of the iMac right there.
It was
They are
a very
done.
scary They
They
are.
are done. I don't even think they introduced new colors.
They
No.
did? Well, no,
not
not,
today.
not on the iMac, no.
I was really hoping there would be a black one, just like the MacBook Pro.
Yeah. Or I was kind of hoping for a 27-inch iMac too. I would love to see them bring that back. I guess maybe they are looking for the, Mac Studio to fill that role. But yeah.
Hey, Dave, thanks to you, I turned on the closed captioning. Makes a world of difference. World of difference.
He now can understand.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Guy keeps calling for the Mini in the studio, and I don't think that's a hard ask, Guy.
It isn't.
Now, they really did just upgrade the studio this last year.
They
it's
did.
too soon.
Just in
Yeah.
June, right? June? Or is it May? It was at
I think it was just June, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was at the WWDC, I think. Yeah, so that's a little quick.
And the Mini was January.
And a wrap.
Yeah,
30
Yeah.
minutes.
it's a wrap.
Not
It was scary
surprising.
fast.
Not surprising.
Oh, this event was shot on an iPhone and edited on a Mac. There you
What
go.
a surprise.
What a surprise. They didn't say what iPhone and what Mac, but
Oh, it's
think it was.
I think they did, Eric. It's the iPhone 17 and the
Oh.
M5 Mac Studio.
okay.
M5 Max
Oh.
Mac Studio. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
that's what they
right.
did this on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That would make sense.
Ooh. Did you see those clouds going over the Apple logo?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
That is going to be my new wallpaper. That is awesome. I like
That is
that a
awesome,
lot.
actually.
And that's the event.
That's the event. That's everything.
Wow. We've got an upset Vert Shark in the chat room.
Son of a beach.
I'm like simultaneously excited and disappointed at the same time, and I don't know why.
Well, look, this
there's
is something that's been a long time coming as far as the iMac is concerned. If they did not upgrade the processor in the iMac, the announcement would have been that the iMac has been removed from the lineup.
Removed.
That's
Or
the
they-
only other option. There's no excuse for keeping that M1 iMac around anymore. In fact, you mentioned on an episode at one point, Eric, and I can't remember when you said this, but for all intents, this should just be a drop-in processor replacement. What is so difficult about re-engineering the system board to put an M2 or M3 in it? And I think we have our answer. It's pretty much the exact same machine, little upgraded display and bump processor, but a heck of a lot faster. And for those who've been waiting for it, and to Dave's point, the switchers, those coming from Intel, whether it's a Windows machine or a Mac, because my one client's coming from a 2014 iMac, and my other is coming from, I'm not even going to say the brand. It's just, it's one of the most horrible brands of PCs that you can get. And she's coming from that, and I convinced her to go to an iMac. And thank goodness they didn't buy the M1 iMac, because I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
It had to be coming. It had to be coming.
Well,
I kind of wish they'd done a little bit more. But Dave, did they say anything about USB-C on the accessories?
No mention of it. No, but I have this feeling it's there, and they just didn't. They just didn't say it. We'll find out once the Apple the store opens back up and see if you can buy them separate.
I did see that the mouse, somebody said, don't expect the USB-C mouse, Magic Mouse or whatever, to not have its goofy charging port. You know, that
No.
it was
The
still
bottom,
gonna
right?
Yeah.
have the bottom.
Dumb.
I would love to know whose idea that was and why.
And are they still at Apple?
Logitech, you did it. There's the USB-C right there. See.
Yeah.
I know.
Yep.
Maybe it was Logitech that convinced Apple to put it at the bottom, so they. Could
Well,
sell more mice.
I have a sneaking suspicion Ive was involved in that decision, and no, he's not at Apple anymore. So there you go.
Because nobody wants to see an ugly charging port, so you put it at the bottom.
Yeah.
You know what? That's probably as good of an answer, or an idea as anything that it was his design, because it wouldn't be the first time that he chose
Come on.
form over function.
Touchpad. You put a port here. You put a
I
port
know.
here,
I
right?
put a port
I
there.
know
Yeah.
exactly. I love
Well, it would have been difficult to put the charging port on either end without a major redesign of
Right.
the mouse.
that. Right.
By putting it where they put it, they could eliminate the battery compartment, put the rechargeable battery and charging hardware, the required charging hardware, in the same space taken by those AA batteries,
Batteries. Yeah.
and just move on, which is probably the best answer. Joking aside, that's probably the best answer. Is it really was just cost savings. How can we
Yeah.
do this in the least expensive way possible? And
so we don't
and
have
that was it. With the
Right.
trackpad and the keyboard, well, the port was there.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of swapping it out, or it will be a matter of just swapping it out. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, engineering wise, that makes a lot of sense. And that you're probably exactly right on that. And you'd think, well, and I'm sure like mice are not there. They're not worried about coming out with a new Magic Mouse, but sometimes they come out with little stuff like that, and it becomes a really hot seller. And I realize, a few $1 million for them is, they probably lose, more money in an audit issue than than a few $1 million.
that's a
for the money
rounding
they make.
error, Eric.
Yeah, it's
That's
a rounding error.
Yeah, that's not.
Right.
I saw an interesting quote the other day, completely unrelated to what you're just saying, but talking about billions versus millions. Interesting quote, and I'll paraphrase because I don't have the quote in front of me. But the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is that a millionaire can actually lose their money, and a
Yeah.
billionaire has so much,
Yep.
such a perverse pile of cash that
Yeah.
what they might
It's-
lose in any given day is an entire fortune to a millionaire.
Right. Right. They could lose several. They could lose several millionaires and not really feel it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bad
Yeah,
paraphrase, but that's the gist of it.
Well, and yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, what do you think, Dave? We got new MacBook Pros. You have an
Yeah.
M2, right? You have an M2
I have an
MacBook
M2
Air.
MacBook Air, and my work computer, where I just got my M2 MacBook Pro like a month ago. So I guess I should have waited. Huh?
Well, off air, we talked a little bit about M2s in the workplace and M2s at home. And Guy mentioned in the chat room his M1 MacBook Pro that he's still very happy with. I mean, how disappointed are you? In all seriousness, how disappointed are you that you did just get an M2 MacBook Pro, and now they have the M3s? Does it really make that big of a difference to you? I
It
suspect
doesn't make
not.
any difference. Just like I said with my M1 Pro 16-inch that I bought close 2 years ago now, and I'm perfectly happy with it. I'm on it right now with you guys, and it works flawlessly. I mean, I keep it in good shape and keep the OS clean and get rid of the cruff, and it's chugging along with no problem. I don't see hardly any performance issues. I've got M1 Mac Minis that I bought in 2020 that I'm still using that work perfectly fine for what I need them for. I mean, these are really going to be some hardcore power users, I think. And I think that's, like I said earlier, I think it's just going to be the Intel upgraders and the hardcore pro users are going to be really looking at this. The iMac's going to be something more along the lines of, if you didn't buy the previous iMac now, you're going to want to jump in and get it. But again, it's only got the maximum RAM you can put in it is 24 gigs, so it's still considered a consumer line product. So no pro is going to be buying an iMac. I mean, they're really, as you saw, like what they just did, they're going to make this a consumer product. I mean, it truly is a consumer product. You're not going to see too many corporate companies going to be buying iMacs for users. I would be very, very surprised.
The iMac has always been a more consumer-facing machine.
Right.
And to
Other than when I
Eric's
tried it
point,
with the iMac Pro, the 2017, the older one.
yeah,
Right.
But in an era where a 16 gig M2 Pro Mac Mini can be considered a pro machine.
Right. Or the Mac Studio for that matter.
Yeah, or the Mac Studio. Well, yeah, Mac Studio starts with a little bit higher spec'd out machine, but what, why not a 16 or 24 gig iMac as a pro machine? I can see a lot of situations where that would be, but perhaps not on a desktop publishing desk or an image editing desk or, CAD or video editing, things like that. You may be looking for something a little bit more, but
the thing of it is, though, it probably could, just like you said, in an era with a 16 gigabyte, M1, whatever, it probably can do a lot more than we're talking. Yeah, is a pro user going to buy it to, do Cinema 4D or do some heavy duty, whatever? But you know what? If you, let's say, are a realtor and you put together little movies of properties and stuff like that, you probably could totally use Final Cut with it.
Oh, absolutely.
You put 24 gig in there and it would work perfect, and even the corporations, a lot of times if they need like computers sitting at the desk and the users aren't like, again, video editing or doing some sort of thing, but just a computer for work, whether it's spreadsheets or whatever, an iMac would be perfect again. They get the cheapest iMac. That would work really, really well. And I mean, so these computers now are getting to be so, I think with Apple Silicon, so much faster, and the software is tuned so well that, especially, like I said, Motion and Final Cut, they just seem to work faster than even the Adobe apps. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm going to go buy one for this, but, it's kind of getting amazing what you can do. It's not just, you have to buy this super expensive machine to do everything.
I just went back on the Apple Store site, and they've got all the specs up there already with the new products. 8 gigabytes for a MacBook Pro. It's really good. Really, Apple? That's your base model?
That's tough for a base model.
That's so disappointing. Yeah. That's so disappointing. I mean, it should be, like we said, a minimum of 16. And the 16-inch model is even stranger. The base model, the M3 Pro, is 18 gigabytes, and 36 gigabytes are the base RAM on those machines.
18?
So it says 18 gigabytes and 36 gigabytes. Yeah.
Huh.
So there's two models of the M3 Pro, and then there's one, and then we got the M3 Max.
Interesting.
Whereas the 14, and that's the thing. The 14-inch, they're aiming at with the M3 only. So it looks like the M3 is only going to be on the 14-inch, not on the 16-inch. The M3 starts at 8 gigabytes of RAM, whereas if you go to the M3 Pro on the 14-inch, then that would put you at 18 gigabytes of RAM.
Did the previous 16-inch MacBook Pro just
started at 16
get one with just an M2?
You couldn't. It was always an. Yeah, I mean, so looks like what they've done is they've changed the 14-inch model is more of a entry level MacBook Pro, which it never really did that before. Yeah. The 14 was always, if I remember correctly, it was always at 16. When I just bought the one for work, I know that. I mean, I buy them all the time for work for my company, so I see this every day. It was the base was 16. So they really changed this. This is very surprising.
Yeah, I wonder if they did that as a cost savings or why. Now, is the 24-inch iMac only comes with an M3, right? Not you can't get an M3 Pro with that, can you?
I was just looking.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I was just looking. I was going to do a little customization of one here and see what we could come up with.
Yeah,
but my browser window doesn't seem to want to go past the edge of my screen here.
Here's iMac here. I'll take a look.
M3.
M3's only. Yep. There's
M3
no M3
only.
Pro for this.
Yep. And
unless you can do a custom order.
and well, and that's what I'm in right now is the
No,
custom order, and you got 8
It
gig, 16 gig, 24 gig,
Right.
and up to 2 terabyte SSD storage.
right.
But no processor upgrade.
No processor upgrade.
Just that's it. It's a so probably similar to what the M1 was, but just yeah.
And you know,
So
to your point, Eric, and they've done this for quite some time, but the pre-installed software you can get on it is Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. So you know, you mentioned that. Sure, if you want to do Final Cut Pro editing on this, I think it would be fantastic, even on the 8
yeah,
gig.
yeah,
But you know, really,
yeah.
you should have 16 or more if you want to do Final Cut Pro editing. But
Right. Yeah, if you really are serious about it and you want to do stuff, because and again, the more you do, the more stuff you're going to want to do, and the more stuff you're going to want to do, the more you're going to see how the iMac is not going to be able to do what you need it to do, and that sort of thing. But the one thing I will say, I am really happy that Apple had this event and came out with the M3 and the new Macs, and that it does seem like it's really committed to the Mac and really trying
yeah.
to push it. And I, for a little while there, for a few years, we weren't too certain. So to kind of see them doing this is really great. So I mean, and on the one hand, you're like, man, if you just get a new computer and you see that they come out with a new processor, it's kind of a little bit upsetting. But on the other hand, it's actually really good too, because it just means that people are buying and they're pushing it. So
yeah, and I think we've mentioned a couple times that those of us with an M1 series Mac are kind of thinking, I'm okay. I don't
yeah,
I don't feel like I have to rush out, versus the Intel days where, like you said, every 18 months we're coming out with new iMacs, and the leap in power from one generation to the next was like, oh man, I just got that, and now this thing is, so much faster.
right.
But these,
Yeah.
these speed increases that they're talking about from one generation to another, the M1 to M2 to M3, for the most part, those of us who are using it just as a daily driver type machine, you're not going to notice that at all.
Right.
Now, where you are
And
going to notice it is in things like what you turned me on to, Eric, in Pixelmator Pro, the super resolution feature.
yeah,
If
right.
anyone is on the fence about bumping to Apple Silicon, let me just tell you this. I use that super resolution feature of Pixelmator Pro. It's good. It's not great. But it does a good job.
It does a
And if I'm at the office on my Intel Mac and I have an image I need to bump the resolution of, the very first thought that comes to mind is, you know what? I'll wait. I'll wait and I'll do it at home. Because watching that Intel Mac do a super resolution upscale is like literally watching paint dry. It is absolutely horrible. And that same image in the same application on the M1 Mac Studio takes literally seconds. Seconds. It's crazy.
I know. Oh yeah.
So
And
if,
you forget how much. Yeah.
yeah, you
faster
forget.
it is.
And every once in a while, I'll start one of those super resolution enhancements on an image at the office. I'm like, what did I do? Why did I even
what did I
bother
do?
clicking
What?
to enhance the resolution of this image? Because I'm not going to see these results until my beard comes in.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is. And and I think we're kind of in that era right now where new things are going to be coming out. Obviously, AI is a big thing, but more things to take advantage of the neural engine and the graphics processor, the GPU, and all that stuff, and just the fact that the way that it's designed, the unified memory, and all that stuff, that it probably in let's say 5 years, looking back at 2019 Intel machine, even if it's remarkably fast, it probably be, looking back at that, it'll be like looking at like a 386 when, in the post Pentium type world. It'll be
386. Oh my God, that's so long ago.
I know.
Well, don't get me started on those 386 SXs, man. I tell you.
I remember.
Yeah, I do too. I remember.
I had one.
I have one of those
Yeah,
processors on the shelf here somewhere, just pulled out of the socket. It's here somewhere. I can't reach it, but yeah.
I had one, and I had a Mac with a 68020 processor in it. That was slow even when it was new. I mean, even I think when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Those were a lot different then.
these new Apple
Yeah.
Silicon Macs just run so efficiently. Yes, they're fast, but they're just so efficient that it's a little jarring when you switch back to an Intel MacBook Pro and you have it on your lap, and suddenly you're like, "What is this warm feeling on my lap?"
I know. And plus
you
the
know-
fan. I had an Intel Mac behind me one day, and I'm working because I'm so used to it. We're all so used to the quiet, blissful
Yeah.
sounds of
Yeah.
no fan, and it's like, what the?
Yep.
Oh yeah, Intel Mac. I don't miss that one bit.
Oh, anything else we missed, guys? I mean, this was
No.
as I called it. I just, my gut was telling me nobody in Cupertino is going to want to be up late tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was kind of a video version of their press release. If they just wanted to get
Yeah.
the information out there about the new Macs, whether it's the MacBook Pros or the iMac, and the iMac was really for all purposes just a
they were
press release. That's about how much time they spent on it.
They spent time.
No more than 2 minutes, I think. 2 or 3
Yeah,
minutes.
it was about 2 minutes. You're right. This is just a video version of a press release, and I
I think-
didn't expect that much more than what we got.
No, and I think you're right. I think, in hindsight, it makes perfect sense. They wanted to release the M3, and they didn't, they're like, well, we can't just put it out there. We've got to talk about it. Plus, the new stuff. And so they had to do something. So this is what they did. They kind of made the best of, whatever. And yeah, it totally makes sense. And I don't think anybody, and they were pretty, upfront with it because you knew it was going to be the Mac just from the poster.
Yeah,
They have the little Finder icon.
yeah, that was
know.
awesome.
That's the only thing that, yeah, exactly. It was totally awesome.
Yep.
Well, then I think we can probably wrap this one up, huh, guys? I think that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or maybe you'd like to share some of your own thoughts about Apple's announcements tonight, well, you can leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at ForMacGuysOnly.com, or you can drop me a line, Mike@ForMacGuysOnly.com. And be sure to subscribe to this show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV, and you can click that little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live, join the chat room, like Guy and Brian did tonight, and catch all the behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. But since this was a scary fast show, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of that. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot of that. That makes sense? I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It makes sense.
Dave, what is the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Well, Mike, thanks for having me on the show. You can find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. They do a podcast there. We live stream every Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And you can also find me on that's what would be on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios. I'm on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network on Fridays, and I'm also on Mac Voices Live with Chuck Joyner. I've had him on the show many times. We have a great time, and we'll be definitely talking about this tomorrow as you've recorded this. Come check me out there, as well as I'm on Mastodon, which is at DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud. Thanks again, Mike.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Dave. And Eric, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
The usual Eric for Mac Eyes Only. That's .com. That's the best way. Single
Very
best way.
cool. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Eric and Dave for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.